You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. This episode is sponsored by Demand Derivatives, a startup futures exchange and clearinghouse trading the world's major assets in a creative new way. You already trade on an exchange. Here is your chance to own one. Before they approach large strategic partners for funding, the pioneering team at Demand Derivatives launched a crowdfunding portal so that regular traders have the chance to buy shares. Learn more and become a part of this revolutionary fintech project now at demandderivatives.com/crowdfunding. Bitcoin, Ether, Ripple, Litecoin, and more. Cryptocurrencies and other digital assets are taking the financial world by storm. This exploding market provides everything a savvy trader needs: volatility, volume, and liquidity. Provided you know how to find it. That's where we come in. Welcome to the Crypto Rundown. Each week we'll break down the latest trading activity, trends, and developments on everything from coins to tokens, futures, and even OTC options. If it's moving the crypto markets, then you'll find it on the Crypto Rundown. This program is brought to you by Genesis Volatility, also known as GVol, home of institutional-grade crypto options analytics. Whether you're trading CeFi options or DeFi options, cryptocurrencies move. Use GVol Analytics to analyze implied volatility, model realized volatility, structure positions, and unlock alpha. For more information, visit gvol.io. That's GVOL.io. Now it's time to dive into the exploding world of cryptocurrencies and digital assets. It's time for the Crypto Rundown.
All right, everybody. That music means it is time once again, one final time here for 2020. Yep, it is time for the Crypto Rundown, the program where we break down everything outside of what we talk about usually on our other programs here on the network. We're not going to talk about Apple and Tesla and SPY options and SKEW, all that good stuff. We're going to talk about Bitcoin and ETH and all the good stuff going on out there, and the options, the volume, the volatility, the SKEW, the OI, all that good stuff, as well as, of course, the spot and the futures and everything else you guys are trading out there. My name is Mark Longo from theoptionsinsider.com, as well as, of course, from the aforementioned network, reminding you, particularly for this show, we get such an influx of people who are new to the options world completely. They're mostly coming from the crypto side to this program. So, A, if the stuff we talk about here on the show is a little over your head, make sure you check out the rest of our content, particularly our Education Wednesday content, Options Bootcamp, Options Playbook Radio. Good places for you to start if you're scratching your head at some of those terms. And, of course, if you like what you hear for this show, for anything we do on the network, keep those reviews coming. This year, 2020, it's been a crazy year, but it's about every metric. So, by all means, those reviews more important than ever to help all the influx of new people coming to the world of options and, indeed, the world of crypto to discover this program and, indeed, the network. So we do love to hear from you guys. And let's see who we're hearing from on the old program today. One final time in 2020, it is time to roll out the Crypto Hot Seat.
Forget about cold storage. It's time to turn up the heat on thought leaders from the world of cryptocurrencies and digital assets. It's time to take their place on the Crypto Hot Seat.
All right. Welcome to the Crypto Hot Seat, the portion of the program where we welcome on guests from throughout the world of crypto trading and indeed beyond, and proceed to pick their brains for the benefit of you, the listener. And next up on the old hot seat is a newcomer to the program and indeed to the network. She is MICKI KOONIN, the head of sales and trading over there at Paradigm. MICKI, welcome to the Crypto Rundown program.
Thank you so much, Mark. I'm so happy to be here.
And Mickey, as we are wont to do with all of our first-timers here on the network, why don't you go ahead and give our audience a little bit of an overview of your background in the financial space, as well as what the heck it is you guys do over there at Paradigm.
Yeah, I'd love to. So a brief background about myself, and I know you just gave that intro about newcomers to the crypto space. I am kind of relatively new to the crypto space. I was a vol trader in the traditional space for about 10 years, trading U.S. indexes and soft commodity derivatives for Wolverine Trading. So a proprietary trading group based in Chicago. I started off on the floor of the old Merc, then I moved over to SIBO, and then I moved upstairs trading those products as well. So I came to Paradigm the summer of 2019, and I really came over with my trading background to kind of be that bridge between traders and the products that we build. So that goes back and forth, learning their workflows in this new digital asset space and kind of seeing where maybe inefficiencies lack and where we can kind of fill those efficiencies and kind of build those out, and then also educate them about maybe potentially new workflows that we're creating. So what are these workflows, I'm sure you're asking, that Paradigm is creating? Let me give you a brief background of that as well. So the easiest way to understand Paradigm is that we are a single point of access to multi-dealer block liquidity for listed futures and options across some of the largest digital crypto exchanges in the world. So DEREBIT, Bit.com, and CME are our current integrations. We have many other venue integrations on our roadmap, and we're so excited to announce those in the new year. So we're creating this point of access, being venue agnostic, exchange agnostic to, where the marketplace is demanding support and volume for all of these crypto products. So while we're creating, access to as many exchanges as you want to trade, we're also kind of building out product agnostic platforms. So right now we support options and futures on Paradigm, trading options and futures, but we're also building out support for spot trading, digital asset loan negotiations. So again, my point, I feel like I've repeated this, but I just love that we're building this single point of access to trade as many different options or products or exchanges that you want to trade at. And, through creating this platform, I feel one of our biggest strengths that we also have created is this network of traders. We have over 290 counterparties on our platform. This includes hedge funds, OTC desks, lenders, market makers, family offices. I could go on. But, by default, we've kind of created this counterparty discovery tool that kind of lacked, without coming onto Paradigm, I feel like all of these counterparties might not have connected with these new liquidity pools to trade these products. So, we're aggregating the marketplace, kind of making it more efficient. There's no more segregation of negotiating with this trader on Skype or this trader on WhatsApp. We're bringing it all to Telegram and then all to Paradigm. And then in addition to just, chat as our core and kind of negotiating those trades, we're streamlining and automating those execution workflows. We're also rolling out our API very soon. So there's going to be 24/7 automated pricing on Paradigm. And then, everything that we build is kind of with the institutional trader or professional trader in mind. Because technically every trade that goes through Paradigm is a block trade. There are minimum size requirements. Those requirements, of course, are set by the exchange, but by default, these sizes are larger, and by default, they're filtering out the smaller retail client. So we have larger retail clients, of course, and then, like I said, professional or institutional traders. We are building tools to allow for complex strategies, so multi-leg strategies that you weren't able to execute in a single transaction before. And then also even, complex traders might want to execute delta neutral, so combining options and futures in the same transaction. That is, something that we're very proud to have built on Paradigm as well. So yeah, I just feel like, creating this single point of access to this huge network of professional traders, as many different venues that you want to trade on, all these different products that you want to block your trade into. And it's been awesome to see in this past month, of course, with, the current activity and the huge rally that we've seen. Some of our volume has been the strongest this month. And I think that's really solidifying our place in the marketplace that, when the screens are thin and stuff widens out, where are you going to go to get these larger size trades done? And that's where we come in. And it's really been, satisfying to see that in this time of craziness and market rally, that our volumes have kind of exploded as well.
Wow, a lot to unpack there, Mickey. Before we dive into all that really quickly, I have to know it's quite a transition from down in the trading pits with Wolverine to going up here on the screens and trying to facilitate these blocks now on Paradigm. So I'm curious for you, what was that inflection point? What was it that brought you over from the traditional world of S&P and index volatility and said, hey, maybe I want to try my hand at these crypto things?
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like it's kind of similar to like everybody. You see this, I don't know what to call it. Like, it reminded me kind of the OEX back in the day, like, not the wild, wild west, but just everything. There's so much opportunity for growth, whether it's the tools we're building, whether it's the edge people are capturing. It's just like an exciting time, innovative time. And to come from such a strong traditional background, with all these tools that I'm excited to bring over into the crypto space and kind of, bridge that gap and provide these tools, I saw it as a great opportunity. And I was so excited to come over into the crypto side. Yeah.
OEX, I like it. Old school, not even SPX. Just go straight out to the old school days of the OEX, the old 1.5. You don't hear much about that anymore.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
You don't hear much about that anymore out there. But let's get into that. You kind of mentioned the crypto resurgence. We're going to get into all that a little bit, of course, in the Bitcoin breakdown. Quite the resurgence it has been. But walk us through right now. Our listeners like to know what the hot thing is going up out there. And, of course, this recent just explosion to the upside has certainly awakened a lot of people to the Bitcoin space who maybe had been sleeping on it back when it was threatening 3,000 in the other direction during the depths of the crypto winter, but also bringing in a lot more paper. So right now you guys are facilitating a lot of the big blocks out there. Are pretty much everyone, are they just gobbling up calls, Mickey? Or what are the big trades you're seeing going up? What's the hot action on Paradigm and Bitcoin right now?
Yeah, it was interesting to see earlier in the month and in November, and all this information, of course, is available on Genesis Volatility. Usually we don't talk about specifics on the platform, of course, because of counterparty confidentiality. But in the overall marketplace, there was more activity in calls blocked earlier in the month and then in November. And then now it's just, I feel like, overall equally weighted calls and puts, just overall activity that has risen for block trades.
I like how you termed it earlier, a counterparty discovery tool. It's not something you think about in traditional world of options and derivatives or even stocks. You just go out to a firm like your old firm, Wolverine, and say, hey, provide me some liquidity, and they do the price discovery for you. In the crypto world, not so much. You kind of look a little bit farther afield to find that liquidity. So where are you guys going to build out this network of crypto liquidity providers? The people who are out there responding to these RFQs that you're putting out into the world, are they some of the traditional players, maybe not the Wolverines, but some of the other players out there? Or are you having to go farther afield, maybe finding the quote unquote crypto hodlers and say, hey, are you guys interested in responding to RFQs on our platform? How laborious has it been for you guys to go out and really build this network, and how much farther afield beyond the traditional financial liquidity providers did you have to go?
Yeah, so it's kind of a combination of everything. We started off, really by word of mouth, and we, we're so grateful to be integrated with these clients from early on, that they kind of talk to their other institutional friends. And then, as you see, I feel like a lot of the traditional finance guys have kind of left and started their own operation in the crypto space. And so it's kind of morphed into, both these old school traditional guys who are tiptoeing into the crypto space, new funds starting, and then everybody kind of comes on and they're like, yeah, we want to be takers, but if I see something good, can I also make a price? So it's interesting because we don't label anybody directly or pigeonhole them. You have to be a market maker. You have to be a taker. So it's just like an open network that even if you usually speculate on trades and you are the one initiating RFQs, if you see an RFQ that's sent onto our platform and you have interest, you are welcome to make a price. So that's really the beauty of the platform, that it's kind of an open network and just creating the most efficiency and liquidity pools that we can provide.
Now, we have a pretty broad audience on this program, including a lot of people coming to it who don't know much about options or derivatives or indeed much outside of the crypto space. And maybe these terms we're throwing around, they have no idea what the heck we're talking about, like an RFQ. So maybe walk some of our newer listeners through the process, Mickey. Someone, let's say an asset manager comes to your platform and they want to buy 1,000 out-of-the-money calls in Bitcoin right now. Walk our listeners through the process of how all that unfolds.
Yeah, of course. So like your example, let's say somebody wants to buy 1,000 out-of-the-money calls. Maybe their first step would be to go to the screen, but of course there's not going to be 1,000 out-of-the-money calls offered on the screen, and they have to go pretty deep into the order book to, even get partially filled on that size maybe. So what we do is, a block trade, these larger, chunkier trades, everybody that's on our platform, whether, they're looking to strictly provide liquidity, do a combination of both, they are willing to provide liquidity for those sizes. So an RFQ means request for quote. So on our application, we have a combination of chat and then also this RFQ execution workflow. So you kind of build like not an order ticket, but an RFQ ticket. So what you're looking to get a price on, you select the venue, and right now, as I mentioned, we're integrated at DEREBIT, CMEBit.com, so you can trade products at any of those that you have an account with. So you select the venue, the product, and then you just build all the details. So if you would select the expiration, the strike, the instrument, whether it's a call or a put, and then the size. So you don't put any indication of price that you're looking for, and you just simply you can blast it to one counterparty if you have a good relationship with them on our platform, or you can blast it to as many counterparties, if not all the counterparties on Paradigm, and everybody kind of responds back to you. We aggregate them and list them in order of best pricing, and then you can execute directly within Paradigm. We push that trade. So let's say someone comes back with a price, you're happy with that price. All you simply do is click buy or sell, just as if you're clicking on the screen. But what we do is we push that price and that RFQ that you created into your account at that settlement venue instantaneously. So you go around the order book. We are not influencing the screen prices or affecting, any order book pricing. But ultimately it settles on that, requested exchange. So let's say you requested it at DEREBIT. We would push it into your DEREBIT account. We would block it into your DEREBIT account. So we're simply the tech layer. All your capital, all your margin, everything is handled by DEREBIT. We are just the infrastructure and the piece that pushes the information to DEREBIT.
Now, one of the ongoing talking points of this program, since it launched, coming up on 2 years ago now, is what are the institutional players? What do they think about this space? Are they interested in? I know when it raced up to 20,000 initially, almost back about exactly 3 years ago now, there was a lot of institutional interest. Then it seemed to wane in the depths of the crypto winter, and slowly but surely it seems like it's starting to have a resurgence out there right now. But you guys have the data. You guys are putting up the actual trades, and you're also dealing with all the institutional counterparties and dealing with their inquiries. So over the last few months, as we've seen this explosion north of 20,000 and indeed beyond here, what have you seen on the institutional front? Have you seen a huge uptick in demand? Has the mind share and the interest really exploded along with the price, or is it still kind of business as usual over there?
No, absolutely. I would say it's exploded with the price. And having these tools in place have really, justified their inkling to kind of get into this space. Even like, I would say the summer of last year, people, institutions were very hesitant. And now all of a sudden they're coming out of the woodwork. They're kind of resurfacing the conversations that we had with them like a year ago. And they're like, hey, let's pick this up again. We want to start onboarding and becoming active on Paradigm. They're obviously seeing all the volume and the activity that we do on us. And it's just, solidified and justified their reasoning for coming into this space. And I think that's, what we're trying to build with these institutions and professional traders in mind. We're trying to, build these tools to kind of make them feel comfortable. They're used to having these tools in the traditional space. And building them for the crypto space just made sense. So yeah.
And you mentioned you connect to Derebit. Obviously, they're the big dog out there. But CME is growing and coming online. You mentioned you guys connect to them as well. One of the inspirations for CME launching their products is that here was a listed, regulated venue that people have heard of in the traditional financial space that people know about. They know is not going to vanish in the near future. They know there's actual trading floor space and office space right here in Chicago. They can go to it. They can see it. They can touch it with their hands, which is reassuring in a world where things are somewhat nebulous sometimes. But the volume has kind of been slow to materialize. What are you guys seeing in terms of interest from the institutions on the CME products? They're a little bit beefier, a little bit larger. They're obviously a 5X product versus the traditional kind of one-to-one product over there at Derebit. Are you seeing more interest in that platform, or is it still pretty much all Derebit all the time?
Correct. Yeah, it is beefier. The multiplier is 5-to-1. As are having conversations with these institutions, I think they're interested in both CME and Derebit. I think, Derebit is obvious that has the most volume, but these institutions are, also want to trade at CME. So I'm hoping that with more institutions coming on, it's just going to grow the pie. I don't think it's going to take away from Derebit. I think it's just going to grow the pie of the volume in the space, and I think CME will grow as well.
Well, Mickey, we have to keep on rolling into our next segment, but before we go, perhaps you mentioned these tools. If you want to give our audience a little bit of a hint, a little bit of a tease of what's coming down the pike from you guys and the team over there at Paradigm, now is the time. The floor is yours, madam.
Sure, yeah. So we're excited to be rolling out our API, as I mentioned before. So we're going to have automated pricing. We're also rolling out our mobile application, so you can trade anytime from your phone. And then, like I mentioned, so many new exchanges that are coming on to Paradigm, new products, so really creating that one place to trade all of these other places with that efficiency for settlement execution. So if you have any questions, you can reach out to us. We have a Telegram group. It's Trade Paradigm. Or my Telegram handle is short_vol. So feel free to reach out to me directly as well.
There you go. Reach out to her directly. Mickey, we appreciate you joining us, taking the time out of this crazy market right now to join us on the Crypto Rundown. We'll look forward to seeing how all these RFQs and the APIs and the new tools, how they unfold in the marketplace in the coming months.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you so much.
All right, now it's time to keep on rolling, break down some of that crazy action. It is time for the Bitcoin Breakdown.
It's time to explore the latest trending activity, trends, and developments across the world's leading crypto market. It's time for the Bitcoin Breakdown.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Bitcoin Breakdown. Oh, there is a lot to break down this week. So many things happening, prices and levels that we thought were just absurd, let's say even a week ago, are now online and indeed quite relevant. Coming into showtime, we saw Bitcoin. It was at a little bit north of the 27,000 level. Yes, I said that correctly, listeners. 27,111 to be precise. Looks like it's given a little bit of that back up now. Now it's just ticked right below the 27,000 level, 26,997. That still puts it up a substantial margin, over 4,000 points, about 4,300 from our last show, listeners. Coming into the end of last show, Bitcoin was at 22,788. And we kicked it off today at 27,111. Oh, how the worm has turned. Oh, how these strikes, that seems outlandish, indeed absurd, not too long ago, are suddenly looking genius, indeed well-timed and prescient out there. Let's get into it. Let's break it all down. Of course, a lot of these metrics coming at you courtesy of our friends over there at Genesis. Check them out for yourselves. GVOL, GVOL.io is the place to go to kick the tires and light the fires for yourselves. If you do that, you can see some of these cool hour-by-hour analytics that are not really available on any other platform, at least none that I've seen out there. And looking at the 1 hour volatility, which again is a great metric for Bitcoin in particular because it does change so much hour by hour. It peaked, again, coming into showtime. Last show, it was about 63, almost 64%, so still pretty active, but a little bit quieter. Then it peaked throughout this past crazy, mad week on the 27th, yesterday, at 92.34. That's probably around the level when Bitcoin broke through the 28,000 level ever so briefly there yesterday. So just closing in on 30,000. How insane is that to say out loud? Yet that's where we are, listeners. They hit a 92.34 to be precise yesterday, and it hit 90 again. Well, it hit 90 again on the show a couple weeks ago as well on the 17th, and then it bottomed out pretty aggressively right before that. The vol, of course, on Christmas Day, not so much, down to about a 75%, so a huge swing just intra-week. And then coming into the show today, we're at about a little bit north of 80 right now, 82.25. So huge swings in volatility, almost 20 points just net show to show here, and intra-week about 30 points. So big swings from an hourly vol perspective, which again, product is threatening a 100 vol. You expect big moves out there, and that's pretty much what you got. 1 hour skew, that 30-20 skew, remember they kind of take that full strip. So not just a 25 delta put, not just 25 delta call, but taking all of it together. Again, all these metrics coming at you from the DEREBIT order book, because that is, of course, the big dog out there. That 1 hour 30-20 skew peaked at about a 14 even on the 27th. So yesterday, last show was at about 9.75, and then it's come off quite a bit since yesterday. It's at 8.25 now. So 9.75 is a week ago, got up to about 14 yesterday, and then down to about 8.25 right now. So big shifts in skew as well. A lot of that, of course, coming on the fact that a lot of OI has, let's say, changed since last week. Last show, the hourly OI, so how much OI was open in terms of contracts at that moment, peaked this week last week on the show was 212,000. It peaked at 238,000 on Christmas Day, and then it pretty much dropped off that same day down to 154,000. Remember, we said a lot of DEES is open, and once DEES rolls off the board, it's going to change a lot of things. And that's pretty much exactly what we saw. A lot of DEES rolling off the board last week. An intraday drop of OI from almost 240,000 down to 154,000. Almost 90,000 contract shift in just hourly OI just within a few hours. So that's a huge drop. That might be the largest, if not the largest we've seen. I'll have to go back and check to make sure, but that's a huge intraday swing. Coming into today's show now, it hasn't really recovered that OI. It's at about 174,000 right now. So it's gained about 20,000 contracts since that nadir on Christmas Day, but nowhere near the 238,000 it was at not too long ago. Let's look at the OI, how that translates into some notional open interest as well, and we got some big numbers out there. Remember, if you look at across the broad spectrum of venues, DEREBIT's obviously still the big dog, but you add in, your Ledger X and your OKEXs and everything else, CME out there. We saw them getting north of 5 billion a few times, and on the last show, DEREBIT was at about 5.6 billion. This week, or intra-week actually, we threatened 7 billion. We got very close to it on the 24th, about 6.8 billion when you add up all the venues. So that includes DEREBIT, was at about 5.6 billion. And then we had a bunch of other names out there adding up about another 1.2 billion out there. CME around close to about 250 million or so. OKX, similar levels out there. So add all those up together, you get close to 7 billion, which is a huge amount of OI. And of course, that all went away the next day. We were below 5 billion pretty much the next, a few hours later, about 4.5 billion net OI. So a ton of OI came off the board as DEES rolled off the board. We said it before, we'll say it again. Crypto derivatives, they love a quarterly. And those quarterlies, when the DEES roll off the board, a lot of OI went with it. So we kind of find ourselves in a new paradigm to reference our guest from earlier on the show in terms of what we're seeing out there from an open interest and a volume perspective out there. Coming into today's show, we're seeing, again, OI has changed quite a bit. Overall OI, about 112,000 contracts open on the call front versus about 62,000 open on the puts. Again, those numbers much lower than we saw this time last week. Let's look at the volume. Active week, but not quite as crazy as the week before. Remember, we were talking about on the 17th, last show, hitting 1.1 billion on the 17th. So that was pretty much an all-time high out there. Didn't quite hit that this week, but still had some pretty active weeks. 780 million worth of notional on the 27th, 673 million worth of notional on the 21st, so on our last show last week. So again, not quite as high as the week before, where we saw, again, not just 1.1 billion on the 17th, but about 880 million on the 16th, 661 million on the 18th. So not quite in that ballpark there, but pretty aggressive nonetheless. Take that previous week out of the equation, and then, yeah, you have new records. But that week does put things in a little bit different light out there. Biggest trades of the week, again, out there on DEREBIT. We look at a lot of different ways you can break this down. Premium, how much is going on from that perspective. We like contracts more. So let's look at the largest contract size trade. That would come up on the 24th. One of the largest was a 400 lot of the Jan 20,000 puts that went up on December 27th, 0.0185 Bitcoin. If you're wondering about that, that's a 99 volatility. 20,000 strike just not that long ago. It seemed like an optimistic upside call bet, and now it's a hedge for puts pretty much. 400 lot. Breaking back to the 20,000 strike out here. So that's where we find ourselves today on the show, listeners. In terms of open interest, again, this number has changed markedly. All of these is pretty much gone now, and that was the big dog. Now we have Jan leading the dance with about 63,000 contracts, followed by March at number 2 with 34,000, and everything else kind of a pale shadow behind it. We used to talk about strikes. We used to laugh, listeners, at that 36,000 strike. What an absurd trade. That trade looks amazing now. It's still number 1, about 20,000 contracts still open. So that strike is still open for size out there. Followed by the 20,000 strike number 2 at about 12,500 contracts open. And then, yes, the 52,000 strike number 3 with about 11,000 contracts open on that strike. So we have some outlandish strikes open, but hey, we mocked the 36,000 strike, and now when it hit 28,000, it was pretty much equidistant between 20,000 and 36,000. It had the same amount of distance to go to hit that 36,000 strike as it did to retrace back to 20,000. So who thought we'd be in that situation? Well, clearly this person probably did, but outside of them, not many people. And yet, interesting stuff. The saga of those, we'll have to dig into those a little bit more, looking at the price action, how they've performed. Delta-wise, they've certainly looked good, but Vega-wise, I'm sure they looked very good. So we'll get into all that. SKEW-wise, probably coming up in January once we see these things roll off and we have a sense for how they perform. But interesting trade to analyze. I think we'll do a little bit more of that coming up on the show. Going out to CME land, the place where the Paradigm folks said they're starting to pay more attention. Their clients are starting to pay more attention. A pretty active week out there. Thursday, not so much, 32 contracts. Friday, obviously closed. But Wednesday was a big dog out there. 406 contracts. Doesn't sound like a lot, but that's a 5X contract. You're talking 2,000 plus contracts going up that day. So that's a decent clip for CME. We haven't seen numbers that high in a while. Tuesday, about 200. Monday, 356. So a pretty active week when it comes down to CME on the options side. Decent numbers on the futures side as well. Friday obviously closed. Thursday, about 6,000. Again, light day heading into the holiday. Wednesday, about 14,000. Tuesday, almost 19,000. And Monday, about 19,000 as well. So pretty decent paper out there on CME. Unfortunately, not the same story over there on BAKKT, our old friend, the BAKKT volume bot. Looking at their summary here of 340 contracts. That's down 81%. And a pale shadow of their high of 18,718 that was traded back on September 17th. So they're putting up some numbers just 3 months ago. And now that seems to have trailed off quite a bit. So not sure what's going on over there in BAKKT. We'd like to find it out in the future on the show. Maybe in 2021 we'll get some folks from BAKKT on to pick their brains a little bit. But now it's time to keep on rolling and explore the altcoin universe.
It's time to move beyond Bitcoin and find out what's moving the rest of the crypto marketplace. It's time to boldly venture into the altcoin universe.
All right, everybody. Let's do it. Let's explore the altcoin universe. Let's start in top 10 land. Number 10, Chainlink at about 5 billion, pretty much even. Number 9, Binance Coin, 5.1 billion. Number 8, Cardano, 5.3 billion. Remember, standard caveat applies. Take all these overall market caps with a pretty hefty grain of salt, but the rankings have a little bit more value, I think. Number 7, Polkadot, 5.4, almost 5.5 billion. Number 6, Bitcoin Cash, 6.8 billion. Number 5, Litecoin, 8.8 billion. Number 4, yes, I said number 4, our old friend XRP. Oh, how the mighty have fallen. Below Tether now. Back to number 4, 12.9 billion. A rough week for XRP listeners. Everything else is off to the moon. XRP going back down. Tether number 3 at about 20, almost 21 billion, excuse me. ETH number 2, 84.5 billion. Number 1, the big dog, Bitcoin, half $500 billion, $503 billion. Yes, it wasn't that long ago on the show. I mocked one of our guests for saying it might be a $1 trillion asset, yet here we go. Halfway there, listeners. That's the year that has been 2020. Let's get out to number 2, the other big dog outside of Bitcoin, which is, of course, ETH. Man, what a week for ETH. It was 610.5 on our last show. Coming into today's show was almost 742, 741.97. It puts it up about 131.5 handles from last show. Let's talk some 1 hour vol. That's interesting out there as well. Last show, it was 86%, and it had peaked coming into today's show. Actually, was the peak at about 105.5 as of about half an hour ago. So a lot of vol still to be found out there in ETH land. The 1 hour 30-20 skew. Last show was about 12.65, and it peaked again today, about 24.5. So pretty much double what it was this time last week on the show. So a lot of movement out there in ETH land. A lot of this, of course, reflects the fact, I mentioned it for Bitcoin, but it even holds truer for, and it's much more resonant for ETH, because I mentioned it to Greg from Genesis Volatility on the show last week. ETH was pretty much entirely based, and all of the OI was based in December. And now all of that is off the board, listeners. You recall last show, there was just a huge chunk of OI on the table there from Dees. In fact, Dees had 668,000 contracts open. I mean, it dwarfed. Nothing else was even half of that. March was the next closest, and it was around 260,000 contracts. So Dees was pretty much the entire game in ETH options, and all of that is off the board now. So we're talking about, that's why the skew has changed. That's why everything has changed. We are completely in a new paradigm for ETH options now, because we have to kind of rebuild that OI almost from scratch. And it'll be interesting to see how it shapes up. Again, coming into today's show now, all of that is off the table. All that size Dees is off the table. Still a decent amount of OI left here, but a lot of that is gone. Talking 570,000 contracts open on the call side, 422,000 contracts open on the put side. Hour by hour, this will give you a good snapshot of how this changed. Last show, it was about 1.43 million contracts open. It peaked at about a little north of 1.5 million on December 25th. The same day, within a few hours, once all that rolled off the board, it plummeted to 872,000. So pretty much got cut in half right there. And that's all that Dees rolling off the board, listeners. And it has recovered somewhat. Coming into today's show, it was at about 1 million, almost exactly at the start of the show, but still just a pale shadow of what it was this time last week, or even going into the Christmas holiday here. So it'll be interesting to watch ETH more than any other product out there. It was Dees heavy, and all of that is gone now. So we're kind of almost starting from scratch here in the new year, which is kind of interesting. From a volume perspective, decent week, about 112 million on the tape on Christmas Eve, and 109 million on the 27th, so yesterday. Decently active day today as well, about 98 million contracts on the tape today. That compares pretty favorably to what we saw the previous week on the 16th, with about 105 million and 98 million on the 18th. So those are all pretty much at or about new highs. Looks like the 112 million might be a new high, but we might threaten that today. We'll see. Again, almost 100 million coming into showtime. And now I mentioned Dees going off the board. Well, what's left? Where is everybody playing right now? And it is still pretty much March, with about 260-odd thousand contracts open out there, 262 to be precise. Then it kind of falls off a cliff from there. We got January actually expiring on the 1st, not even the monthly. So expiring on the 1st, looks like there's about 160,000 contracts open there. So a lot of OI expiring on the 1st. And then it falls off again to the end of month of traditional January at about 140 or so thousand. And then June, again, going out to the next quarterly beyond March, you got June with about 135,000 or so. So January 1st will be another big day for a lot of OI rolling off the board here in ETH. It'll be interesting to see where it reestablishes. Again, we talk about the strikes as well. All of this you kind of have to wipe clean as well. Now that Dees is gone, different ball game, and it's the 480 strike that is leading the dance now, with March being the primo OI spot. 53,000 open there, a lot less than what we saw last show, that some strikes at 70+ thousand contracts open. Now the big dog, the 480 strike, with about 53,000, most of that out there in March. Before we roll out of the altcoin, we got to talk about Ripple. Man, what a catastrophe for the XRP bulls. You know, it had been rallying. It broke finally away from that 30-cent handle for a while, got up to 60+ cents and more. It seemed like maybe the worm was turning. Finally, all those folks out there in XRP land who've been waiting and waiting and waiting, and they've been dogged by all sorts of rumors out there for so long. Issues with the XRP issuers kind of flooding the market, and the regulators having some questions about whether they were illegally issuing securities. The XRP folks saying no, they weren't doing that, but still there's a lot of back and forth on that. There was rumors they were going to just abandon ship, head on over to some other non-U.S. regulated marketplace to get away from the U.S. regulators. None of that boded well for the price as well. And now, of course, we have seen the SEC coming at them this past week, and that, of course, annihilated the price of XRP. So some of the worst fears of the XRP bulls coming to pass this past week. It was down 23, almost 24 cents from our last show. So, okay, coming into today's show, XRP was at 28 cents, down from 52 cents on our last show, and well off the highs it set a couple of weeks ago out there. So yeah, unfortunately, people thought maybe this was the moment. XRP was following suit along with all the rest of the crypto out there, and it was moving up, and rising tide was lifting all boats. And then this week, not so much. A lot of questions lingering about how the SEC and others are really how they're going to handle this going forward, and what that means for XRP. Is it a security, or did they violate the regulations? A lot of things to unpack there, but at least in the near term, the future not looking good for XRP. All right, and that's going to do it for this episode of the Crypto Rundown. It's also going to do it for this show for 2020. Man, what a crazy year this has been. Just not just in the crypto front, but just in every possible way imaginable. But I do want to thank all of you out there who have listened, who've downloaded, who've streamed, who've listened live, who've sent in questions. Of course, for all of the guests who joined us in the Crypto Hot Seat this year, you guys helped make this show what it is. It is completely a unique beast, and I haven't seen anything else like it in the crypto world. And we plan to keep doing it, bring you this unique content again in 2021. Probably have also a fun top 5 episode countdown coming at you here. So stay tuned to this feed. There'll be more stuff coming at you. And of course, we'll be back again next week, and indeed next year, with another episode of the Crypto Rundown.
This program is brought to you by Genesis Volatility, also known as GVol, home of institutional-grade crypto options analytics. Whether you're trading CeFi options or DeFi options, cryptocurrencies move. Use GVol Analytics to analyze implied volatility, model realized volatility, structure positions, and unlock alpha. For more information, visit gvol.io. That's GVOL.io. This episode is sponsored by Demand Derivatives, a startup futures exchange and clearinghouse trading the world's major assets in a creative new way. You already trade on an exchange. Here is your chance to own one. Before they approach large strategic partners for funding, the pioneering team at Demand Derivatives launched a crowdfunding portal so that regular traders have the chance to buy shares. Learn more and become a part of this revolutionary fintech project now at demandderivatives.com/crowdfunding. You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions@theoptionsinsider.com.